Hey crafters, welcome back to my channel Because I'm Crafty. My name's Katelyn, and today I'm going to show you how I altered these pants. There's a few different things we're going to be doing to these scrub pants for my mom, who is a PSW, so let's get into it. So as you can see here, I am folding up her pants so that I can see that they are just touching the floor at the back or a hair off the floor. We don't want them too long so that she's tripping over them or anything like that. So I'm just folding them up in place, making sure that she's standing up straight, nice and tall, and pinning that fold in place. I'm also making sure that she has the top of the pants at the place that she feels that she will wear them, because it's also something that we're going to be altering, which you will see in a moment. So you want to make sure that the person, when you're pinning their hem, has their pants at their proper wear position. Now these pants were also way too big in the leg, so while they're on her, I'm going to slim in the side of the pants to about the knee area. So I'm putting some pins along the sides to see where I need to taper them from the waist to the knee. These are woven cotton polyester pants, so I don't want to take them in too much because we still need some ease of movement. So it's definitely something to think about, the type of fabric that you're working with when pinning for alterations. And the next thing you can see here is they just had a drawstring waist, and they were huge on her. So I am also going to be putting an elastic waist inside, as well as taking that taper all the way up to the waist. So here I am measuring my hem to see what is the shortest amount to take off so that the pants are the longest. Or you can take the average amount from all your measurements, depending on how different the measurements are from one leg to the other. Sometimes people have one leg longer than the other, so it's something to take into consideration to try and make them as even as possible. Next, I'm taking a look at the original hem so that I can make it as close as possible. Here they've just serged the edge, turned it up once, and top stitched it, but in this case I'm choosing to double turn the hem instead. So I've got my measurement for the finished length of her pants, and I'm putting a pin in that spot on each leg. So next I'm taking my big ruler and I'm going to add 2 inches, so I'm going to do a double fold of 1 inch, making sure that is lined up with my pins and cutting off the excess. So here you can see the shiny part for the pin that's on the other side, and I'm going to do my double fold like so, just like I showed in my jean alteration video. Now I'm going to tackle this tapering from the waist down to the knee, and so I need to unpick a little spot at the top for the waistband so I can take that taper all the way up. Now I'm also noticing there is a tack spot at the center back that's holding the drawstring in place. So I'm just going to unpick those stitches so I can remove the drawstring, since my mom has decided that she doesn't need it, since we are putting in an elastic waist. So back to our side seam, so I'm just going to unpick a little bit of the top stitching that's holding the casing down so that I can start the taper at the very top of the waist. So for these pants, I'm taking it in a 1/2 inch on the fold, so that will be 1 inch altogether, and I'll take that directly straight from the top of the waist, down the side of the hips, and then taper it in towards the knee so that it lines up with the original seam line. When you have a spot in the taper where it's meeting the original seam, you want to make sure you know the measurement so that you can get it in the right spot for where you pinned it. So I'm just taking a measurement from the bottom of the pants to make sure that I get the taper in the correct spot. So now I'm taking my ruler and I am drawing a line following the original seam with a 1/2 inch measurement. So by the time I finish sewing these, they will be altogether 1 inch smaller on each leg, so 2 inches altogether. And then I've tapered it down to that pin, which is the finishing line. And now I'm going over to the other side. I'm picking the top of the waistband so I can get that seam opened up, and I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I'm using my other leg to get that measurement for where the end of the taper is, and finishing off my line. Now my mom wanted a side pocket on these pants to match some of her other pairs of pants since she found the pocket to be really useful. So I unpicked the original hem that I cut off and the excess, and I'm just cutting off the side seams and the inside seam of the hem. And I'm going to sew these pieces together to create a pocket. So first I thought I could just use one pant leg of the hem and then make one pocket for each side of the pants, but it didn't end up being long enough, so I do end up using both pairs of hems to make one pocket. So I'm just sewing the pieces together to create one patch pocket on her right leg. So here I'm just sewing with a really small seam allowance to sew those pieces together for the pocket. And I took advantage of the original serging so that it would be finished on the inside. Then I'm going to press those seams open. I'm just using my hands for now and doing a top stitch to hold those serge sides nice and flat. And then I'm repeating the same thing with the other hem scraps from the other pant leg. Now I'm going over to my pants and following that line I drew for my taper to take in the sides of the pants. When I get to the end of the taper, I'm making sure that I'm sewing right over top of the original seam. Now I'm over to my serger and I'm serging some of the sides of these pocket pieces so that it's nice and finished on the inside and it won't fray away. And for these pockets, I'm serging 3 sides and leaving the top side plain because I'm going to do a double fold to finish off the top of the pocket. So there's no need to serge it. And bringing my pants over, I'm going to serge off that excess from the tapering. And I'm still leaving about a 1/2 inch seam allowance when I'm serging. And as you can see, I'm having to do some adjusting because I've been serging a lot of knits lately, and this is just a simple woven cotton polyester, so I'm doing some adjustments as I go. If you guys would like to see a video about learning how to adjust tension and your threads on your serger, let me know down in the comments below and I will work on that type of video. And as I get to the end, I make sure to line up with the original seam and serging, and I just go over the original for about an inch or so and then angle it out and cut the excess off. So now I've taken my pocket piece over to my iron and I've actually sewn my two pieces together, and I'm just folding in the edges so that it can be top stitched. And I'm also double folding the top to create the hem to finish off the top edge of the pocket opening. Now back over with my pants. I am using the hem method where I take the outer edge of the fabric, folding it in once towards the shiny part of my pin, and then I will do a second fold for the finished hem length. I find this method easier when you're hemming pants because you can get your seam allowance and your turn up amount as even as possible on your pants. I find it a little bit difficult for me at the moment to eyeball it. I'm not quite that good just yet, so I find this method easy because you can see the pin where it needs to be finished and you end up getting the perfect finished length. Then I'm just going to give that second turn a quick press. I'm back over to my sewing machine and I'm top stitching the hem of my pocket. And then I'm going to stitch the hem of my pants down, and on this pair I am stitching from the inside so it's a little bit easier to see. The hem is pretty evenly folded, so I'm not too worried about the black on black being uneven on the outside. It should be fairly straight. Now that I have both pant legs hemmed, I'm going to stitch one side of the waistband back in place. Since I unpicked it to taper these sides, I'm going to leave the other side open and leave that as my hole to thread my elastic through the casing. Now time for the pocket placement. So I'm taking one of her other pair of scrub pants that she really likes, and I am measuring to see where the placement is on them, and I'm going to place the pocket in the same spot on the new pair. So I'm going to use my big ruler as a base to put inside so it's easier to pin the pocket. This is definitely a useful tip if you need to get inside a small position and pin something without catching the other side. So I'm lining up my pocket so that it is straight with the side seam and placing a few pins around the outside to hold it in place so that I'm ready to top stitch it on the pant leg. Back over to my machine, I'm going to sew those three sides of the pocket down. This part is a little bit difficult, but you just have to make sure that you don't catch the other side of your pant leg underneath your needle. Now I have my needle down inside my fabric to turn the corner, lifting up my foot, pivoting my fabric, and then putting the foot back down when I have it in place to go down the other side. anytime I need to reposition the fabric, I'm making sure that my needle's down to hold my fabric in place. And make sure when you get up that third side of the pocket that you don't pivot one more time and sew your pocket shut. Now for the elastic, I'm taking a large safety pin, putting it through the elastic, and using the other side of the waistband where I left it open to use that as my hole to thread my elastic through the casing. So I'm just using my safety pin to push the elastic all the way through until I get to the other side of the hole. This part can be a little bit tricky if you haven't done it before, so make sure that your elastic doesn't get twisted along the way, especially if you're gathering something quite a bit like these scrub pants. It was a little bit tricky to make sure the elastic was nice and flat and straight. And as you're threading and pulling the casing, make sure that the other side of your elastic doesn't get pulled inside. So make sure you have a bit of a tail left out. Now you want to take the two ends of your elastic and layer them one on top of the other so it's nice and flat. And you want to zigzag that together so it's nice and strong. So I go over this part a few times just to make sure it's nice and secure. Then I'm going to pull the elastic through to try and make it as even as possible throughout the whole casing. And I'm going to put my stitch back to a straight stitch and stitch that hole shut in the waistband. There's also a little spot on the other side that I'm just repairing here that didn't catch when I closed it the first time. So you want to pull your elastic nice and flat so that your fabric is flat when you sew it. And I chose to sew it from the top side so I could follow the original stitch line from before. And here are the original scrub pants, and these are the new pair, which definitely fit my mom so much better. She is such a petite person that every single pair of clothes for work are too big. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something about altering pants and clothing. If you guys have any other ideas for altering different types of clothing, let me know down in the comments below and I will definitely work on it. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time, crafters. Bye!